Hey, what's up? It's Frankly Hockey. That is the Hockey Insider, Frank Saravalli. I am John Butchergoss here on Victory Plus. Wednesday, January the 29th, 2026. I'm in Detroit in the hotel. We have Red Wings Capitals tonight. We'll talk to Bailey Johnson, the Capital beat writer, about their woes. In fact, this quote really got me, Frank. They're 1-3-1 on their current road trip. Tom Wilson, this is a kick in the teeth. We've got one game left on this trip. It's the biggest game of the year. So the Caps are getting ready for tonight's game. It's an exclusive on ESPN Plus. I'll be on the call with Eric Johnson as Patrick Kane tries to break Mike Modano's record for most points by a USA-born player. Happy birthday, Chris Bourque, 40 years old. Overtime Beanpot winner 2005, 51 NHL games. 2 goals, one for the Caps against Buffalo and Ryan Miller. His other NHL goal, one for the Bruins against Toronto and James Reimer. How about that? His first. Dominic Hasek is 61, Frank. 6 Vezinas, 2 Cups, only 4 games during that playoff run of 08. He did play 4 games, though, in that playoff, so he does get that second Cup, primary guy in 02. Gold medal as well. The Dominator, the best you ever saw in net?
Probably in terms of peak domination, yes. When he was at the height of his powers, I don't think there's been anyone more powerful at the position in the sport.
And just again, shout out Chris Bourque as we talked to Matthew Darch yesterday. We talk about those guys who really have, long American League careers, productive careers. He won a couple championships down there for Hershey, which is a great place to play professional hockey, some time in Europe as well. And so Chris Bourque, Ray Bourque's son, 40 years old today.
By the way, James Reimer still playing.
Still playing. That's why I had that note. One of Chris Bourque's 2 NHL goals, the second and last one with the Bruins, his dad's longtime team, against James Reimer, still playing in the NHL. 15 games tonight. My goodness. 30 of the 32 teams in action. Again, I'm in Detroit for maybe Patrick Kane history, and we got a Celebrini versus McDavid game tonight. Late night, Frank.
Sign me up. I mean, take that and hook it right into my veins.
All right, some Franks and Beans before we get to the rundown. A couple of these overlap. Just want to give shout out Columbus Blue Jackets. There's the Frank. They've won 7-8. We're going to talk about the Blue Jackets and Rick Bowness. They're 6-1 under him. But just want to give a special shout out before we talk Blue Jackets more a little bit later. Zach Werenski now leads all defensemen, Frank, in points. I think right now, especially if they make the playoffs, I think he would get my Norris vote as of right now. I mean, got 19 goals, most points, also most goals. I think that's important. Goals are the most important stat in hockey. You have to score goals to win. Prevent them, yes, but you'll never win a game if you don't score at least one. And so I just give him maybe a slight nudge in that department. Very close, obviously. And how about Evan Bouchard, tied with Makar, second with 56 points?
I would not fight you at all on the Werenski atop the Norris ballot. I think that taking over the scoring lead, leading in goals, the trouble is the playoffs.
Yes.
But I'll give you a fist.
I think that kind of matters. And if you do punch somebody, I learned this yesterday, Frank, don't punch them with your pinky. That's when you break your hand. That's why you see the guys do this little screwball effect. You want to hit a guy here with the index finger right down the line. So if you want to punch me,
experienced, and I kind of don't hope that I am.
Okay, just don't lead with your pinky. That's when guys break their hands. The little screwball effect. Best team since December 1st. That's coming up on 2 months. That's more of a season than if we did this on December 1st for the best start. Okay, just give you an idea. Best team, highest. I'll go 3-1. The Red Wings, third best, 732%. Avalanche, you'd expect that. Buffalo, 759. Best team in hockey for almost a 2-month period now. And of course, the Red Wings, Frank, just don't want to, I know our Red Wing fans don't want to hear it, but just to remind all our fans, keep this information downloaded so you can easily call it at a cocktail party, call it up. They missed the playoffs 9 straight seasons, second longest active streak behind Buffalo, 14 straight. Their last appearance, first round against the Lightning. And again, that game tonight, and this just from my morning skate fellas at ESPN over the morning skate, Todd McClellan says the flu's going around the Red Wings. So he's not sure who's going to play defense tonight. They think they're okay with the forwards. They'll see. Seider and Sherratt did skate, so they're fine.
So is that why they gave Sherratt the extension?
Yes, because he's healthy. He always shows up. He's a strong immunity, Frank. That's worth an extra $1 million.
It's going around here. My wife hasn't gotten out of bed since Sunday, so it's been problematic in this house.
Yeah, we had a producer who was supposed to produce the game tonight for ESPN. He's bedridden. Jimmy Z always wears a Whalers hat to work. So get better, Jimmy Z. Vancouver 6-14-2 since the Quinn Hughes trade. Just want to remind folks, it's been a disaster since he left. Not good. Not good, Jim.
They are well aware in Vancouver, and I think they're at their wits' end.
Senators, are they coming back like we talked about Winnipeg yesterday? 2 straight, outscore the opponents 12-3. That's a good effort. They do score goals. They're 8 points back of the WC and Atlantic for third. So they're 8 points back. That combo platter. Stützle's had a nice little year. He got 5 goals in 8. Cooking pretty good. Meanwhile, the Avalanche, this is their dip, Frank. Have it now. Get it out of your system before the Olympic break. Winless in 5 of their last 7. 2-3-2. McKinnon -3 last night. No points. His 11th game this season without a point and 5th this month. So this is their kind of take a little break month.
4-5-1 in their last 11, so it does extend out a little further.
Yep.
And by the way, this is the weirdest Ottawa Senators season that I can remember. A lot happening, of course, on and off the ice, but the oddest part of this season is that their best stretch of the season was the one that they played without Brady Tkachuk, 12-5 during that run.
We'll get into a couple of these things. Ondrej Palat, we talked about, we led the show with him yesterday, a goal and assist. First game with his new team. The Islanders have won 2 straight. They're 3-0 against the Rangers this year. So they haven't swept them, Frank, in 8 years. And they have a chance to this Thursday at MSG. And that's tomorrow. They have a chance to sweep them.
You know what that is? That's the Matthew Schaefer effect. He said, I want to try and beat the New York Rangers as many times as possible, has been very vocal about it. It will be fun 15 years from now to track what is the Islanders' record against the Rangers with Matthew Schaefer on the blue line. 3-0 so
I like
far.
that. That's smart because that's like, when I think it was Jim Tressel got the Ohio State football job, the first thing he said is the most important game, beat Michigan. Like if you start like that, right, you kind of start building blocks. You don't think about the Stanley Cup. Let's just beat Michigan first. If you're Matthew, let's just beat the Rangers first. Like, that's one. So that's smart to look at it that way. We'll talk about Artemi Panarin coming up. Again, he's roster management, didn't play. Looks like he won't be to at least the Olympic break. We'll see what happens there. Frank will have some more details on that. And just before we hit to the rundown, just a couple like to remind the viewers every now and then about where we are statistically. Connor McDavid, 4-point lead now with Nathan McKinnon's recent dip, 4-point lead in points. It's 92 McDavid, 88 McKinnon, 80 Kucherov, 78 Celebrini, Draisaitl 74. And I went to top 6 just to get David Pastrnak. Not a lot to play with there in Boston. He should get MVP consideration if the Bruins make the playoffs. Not as the guy, but certainly he'd probably be in my top 5 ballot if they make the playoffs. He's on pace, Frank, for his 4th straight 100-point season.
And we talked the other day about how he still somehow doesn't get enough recognition for his impact.
I think it's the personality and the clothes and the smile. That stuff is all great. That's what makes him, the most popular, one of the most popular players in the league. But you forget that he's always played with grit. He's always played in front of the net. He's fearless, and now he becomes a playmaker the last couple of years, setting people up and making Morgan Geekie a 30-goal scorer.
He was 40 points clear of his next closest teammate last year.
Yeah. So unfortunately for Morgan Geekie, he signed his contract last year. Otherwise, David Pastrnak would have made him really rich. He would have made him $8-9 million a year if he had waited one more year. Top 5 goal-scoring teams, Frank. Colorado, number 1. We expect that. Edmonton, number 2. We expect that. Carolina, 3. Maybe that might surprise some people. Montreal, tied with Carolina for 3rd. About that, you see Caulfield, Hudson. There's a lot of good offensive players there. And then the Bruins as well with 180. Going to this season, even Cam Neely and I think Don Sweeney publicly said, we're going to have a hard time scoring goals. They're not. They're top 5.
This just reminded me, and this is a total tangent and total aside.
Do it.
But
this is the tangent section of the show.
You mentioned Morgan Geekie and would have been really rich. I was talking to a recently retired NHL player who made somewhere north of where Morgan Geekie is, but he was just explaining his finances, and he'll remain anonymous for many reasons. But
of course, yeah.
He said that he's making $400,000 a year just from the dividends of the stock that he owns. That doesn't mean selling it. That doesn't mean anything else.
Yep.
And he can just live off of that and never touch the principal. I mean, it's like, you have to really appreciate that.
Yeah, if you can get to that $10 to $20 million bucket over there and then just live off the dividends of Apple or whatever stocks are in there, that's your salary, right? Then you don't touch.
So good.
The nut.
Generational.
It's nice. It is. And then top 5 goals against before we get to the rundown. Colorado, also the best goal prevention team. That's why they're odds-on favorite to win the Cup. Highest scoring and best defense, 1-1. Tampa Bay, that's why they're back in the Stanley Cup mix as a chance to get back to the finals. And they're just outside top 5 goal-scoring team, so they're right there. But they are the second best goal prevention team. And then it kind of from there, there's another boundary. Then you go down to L.A. That's why they're hanging around the bubble, and they will all year. Utah, suddenly, Frank, sneaky good goal prevention team with cap room and prospects and ability to trade, and they're playing well. And then Dallas. Again, that's kind of, Dallas is just a good checking team. And then the Isles and Penguins are next. And that's why they're where they are this year. One reason why they're solid division playoff teams right now is they're good defensive teams. They're checking.
Yeah. And it's been really interesting to look at the standings through a points percentage lens. Like, I was looking at them after last night's games. The Ducks on paper are in a playoff spot in the Pacific, but they're actually outside of it on points percentage. So always keep that in the back of your mind as you look at games played. There's been some gaps. Some teams have played 4 more games than others that are right next to them in the standings.
Right, especially if it's a good team like Detroit. Tampa Bay has 3 games in hand. They're probably going to win 2 of those. They're probably going to get 6 points out of those. So you can just add 6, or even 5, just to conservatively, or even 4 to get what the true standings are. Mm-hmm. All right, to the rundown. The big news, not real big news. We knew that Artemi Panarin and Chris Drury had the meeting. They're not going to give him an extension. So now it's all about trying to work out a trade. Panarin has all the leverage of where to go and additional leverage in saying that I will not go unless I get an extension. So that limits the field even more, perhaps. Maybe a team like Detroit might consider Panarin.
I don't know that that's 100%, by the way. Like, okay. I've seen it reported. I think there's back and forth. Look, here's what I'll say. The Panarin camp is very comfortable in the value that he's demonstrated in his game. Whether it's with an extension or not, he's going to be a highly paid player, and I don't know that there's an absolute need to lock in today. So I'm not pouring cold water on it, just saying I don't think it's 100%.
Okay. What about this report today? San Jose. I've been kind of very boisterous, in my opinion, that teams like the Sharks, like Utah, like the window is open now. It's time to go. So I would like this, and it makes sense to me from a San Jose point of view. I don't know what Panarin's thinking. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what Panarin's thinking. I thought the most interesting part of the report from Sheng Peng, as you see on your screen here, is that the star winger would sign an extension with San Jose. Now, obviously, the Sharks have the assets to be able to make a deal with the Rangers. They could find common ground. And there's, of course, the BU connection between Mike Greer and Chris Drury. Probably not an incredibly difficult deal to make. Does Artemi Panarin want to be in the Bay Area? I believe that he has his sights set on going to more of a contender than the status of where the Sharks are right now. But it's easy to see a path there with someone like Macklin Celebrini teaming up with him to really do some damage. Now, look, this, just as an aside, this is purely my personal opinion. I think that this would be a mistake for the Sharks. I hear what you're saying, that the window is open now. I think they have too many holes in their roster to really vaunt themselves into that category with Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota. And it's going to take a couple years of filling that out to really get there. So in the meantime, not only do you close off opportunity, but Panarin is 34. He turns 35 before next season starts. Okay?
October, yeah.
That's, so let's operate under these hypotheticals that the Sharks are trading for Panarin and that he's signing an extension. So whether it's 4 years or 6 years, it's going to be expensive and it's going to have term. That's going to essentially take him to his 40th birthday. With where the Sharks core is at, doesn't that feel like a premature sort of leap into that conversation? You're closing off opportunity for young players, and then now you're closing down I believe, how long your window could be open for by a momentary, I'll call it lapse in discipline. Fight me on that.
Okay, I will. Yeah, Mike Greer, Chris Drury, college hockey teammates, won a natty together at BU. So yeah, the communication would be quite easy. I think any GM that gives him 6 years, I would fire him if he's my owner. I'm not giving him 6 years unless I get a big break on term. 6 times 7, okay. But to me, it's 4. It's 4 all the way. I get a guy that can play with Macklin Celebrini. Right now, he's fine. The shouldering the load as he is, more than double the second best guy on the team. You give him a guy to play with for 3 to 4 years. The other winger can be anybody you want. Figure it out. It's just one spot to play with Celebrini. It takes some of the pressure off him. And again, some of this is the entertainment business. This is a buzz. This would electrify the room. It might get them in the postseason this year, which is nothing wrong with that. I think they have the core that they have. And from this point, it's adding guys they've already drafted, future 1s and 2s, even though they might be lower down the draft order, but getting a guy next to Celebrini now to support him a little bit, because over time, this could wear him down. Even looking to next year, there could be a little bit of regression next year from all the team, even Celebrini himself. It just continues to support him a little bit with a big future Hall of Fame type player, as you mentioned, 35 years old next year, only 2 years in Chicago, Frank, and 2 years in Columbus. That kind of blew my mind. I thought he was like there for 5. And now New York for 7. He helped Columbus win the only playoff series they've ever won in franchise history. They've won one playoff series in Columbus. He helped them win that against Tampa Bay with that sweep. He hasn't won a cup yet, as you mentioned, so he's hungry. Playoff numbers okay, 21 goals in 73 games, 61 points. 4-year deal takes him to 38, as you mentioned. I think that's the deal. Is it 4 times? I'd hate to. I don't really want to go to 10, but if we have to, we have to. But yeah, that's why I like it to support Celebrini now. They'd be electric together now and would be, I think, for a couple years. They'd help each other. Pressure off Celebrini, Panarin playing with a great player like he played with Patrick Kane when he broke in the league.
Okay. Hear everything you're saying. So Sharks, let's just follow along, ramping up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Panarin, at some point, he's here. He's going to be going like this. It's father
Slowly.
time. He remains undefeated. Yep. Slowly, yes. But do these things line up? Is there a marriage as these two lines are crossing here? And if not, let's just game this out. 4 years. So in that 4-year period of time, what is the end goal for the Sharks? Then this is the really important overall team building question. Is it to electrify the market and to be a playoff team, or is it to truly win? Because now once you make the Panarin move, every other move successively has to line up with now stacking one on top of the other to add and go for it. You turn that corner and now you add Sherwood and you add Panarin and you go, okay, now we're in. Game on. Okay, well, now that speeds up moving some other pieces in and out. It gives you less opportunity and patience for some of the young guys that you have. And you've now placed a big wager on that 4-year period of time that you're going to break through and get it done. Is Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, are they seeding the Central Division between now and then? Is Vegas, with how they've just added, is Connor McDavid seeding the Pacific Division between now and then? I don't necessarily think that all matches up. That's just my view. I'm not saying, hey, be safe, but I just think there's other better fits, especially when you're now deleting or depleting your process of first round picks and top prospects just to make this happen, that it really begins to tip the scales pretty quickly.
Again, I think we're at peak Celebrini. This is who he is. He's not going to get much better than this. He's just really good young. So to give him a player like Panarin, I think will help him. Colin Graff, the future. Will Smith, the future. Wenberg is signed up, so he's a bottom middle guy. Misa, Toffoli, and they got more coming. So I think their forwards are just about set. They might make one more trade if someone comes available, but I like their forwards. Defense is where they got to get better. Dickinson is young. I think that's where they can make a move here to add a guy, whether it's this year or over the summer or free agency. And then they got the goalie they think possibly as well. So I just think the Sharks are here now. And it doesn't really, I don't see how it takes a spot away from a guy. The middle six is still wide open to produce guys who can get careers and have numbers and get their next contract, don't feel like they're being slighted. And again, this is a 3-4 year window where time flies. We talk about how fast time flies every 10 years. So yeah, for 4 years, I think it makes a lot of sense. Even if you have to go maybe a little higher to get them to take 4 years, because they have no cap problems. They won't have cap issues for a long time. So I like
think
it.
there's
That's
too
why I
many
like
holes. I think there's too many to plug, and adding Panarin in while also depleting resources and then cap space. Like, I think it becomes like that scene in Vegas Vacation with Chevy Chase where he's like sticking a piece of gum in the Hoover Dam, and it's like it's spraying everywhere. And then like over here, there's another one. I think it's going to be makes the job a lot harder to do, and it makes the pressure ratchet up on everyone. When you add a player of that caliber, I think it vaults you into a different category. That's just my view.
Right. It's close, but I like it. All right.
Okay, so let's talk about the other potential
yeah.
fits. I mean, we gotta look at this board here as we're looking at the marketplace.
A great topic. Right.
Which is, so where, if not San Jose, and we'll include San Jose in this category based on Sheng's reporting, some of the other possibilities that we see on the board. I think a sneaky dark horse here is further south in California in the Ducks. Maybe not so much the Kings. The Kings are clinging to life this season. Like, they're doing everything they can to try and get in. And if it was Panarin on a short, just finish out the season, I'd say by all means, like, knock your socks off. I don't know that they have the wherewithal to pull something like that off, but the Ducks, they're further along than the Sharks. They've got more structure. They've got a coach who coached Artemi Panarin in Chicago. They've got shooters. Panarin is the playmaker. Gauthier, shooter. Seneca, shooter. Like, they've got shooters. I see a better marriage in Anaheim than I do, and they have the pieces to do it too, than I do in San Jose.
I still don't. And that's another, I think Celebrini changes everything. I think that's the pull for me. That's why I kind of like that report. That's why he'd agree to sign there. Celebrini, I think he's probably going to get in the Hall of Fame anyway, but that's your ticket to the end of your career. That's what you want to marry yourself like Celebrini, everything that comes with it. And also, Frank, I think you just inadvertently kind of reminded me of something about part of this with my career, and you can't go too crazy about this, but you just mentioned Kings, Ducks, and the Kings are in the mix because they need stars, and they want stars, and they're going to be aggressive to get stars. And Sharks, the future of hockey is in California right now. And you got to keep an eye on those two a little bit, right? Like, that's, you talked about the whole Matthew Schaefer. We got to beat the Rangers. Well, if you're the Sharks, we got to beat the Ducks and Kings first. We focus on that. That helps us a lot. Get to the playoffs, win divisions, right? Get good seeding, avoid the 2-3 matchups in division. So even that alone, if I'm Mike Greer, I'm not going to get a guy just for someone else not to get him. But that's part of it if it's a certain guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I also think Dallas is a great fit, and I think a place that Panarin would like to play.
Yep.
But the hang up there is I don't know how they can possibly pull it off unless they're making the determination Robertson is going to go elsewhere in the summer. They can swing it for this year, cap-wise, but they can't do it moving forward. They can't add that kind of salary, and Robertson not having a deal would have to be one of the guys on the way out.
Yeah, it's tough because people seem to forget Harley's going to 10.5 next year, right? So suddenly you got, now some of the other guys are pretty good. Haskins in the 8 and Hintz is in the 8, but Rantanen's 12, 10 for Harley, 8 for Ottinger. You're right, it adds up fast because I think Dallas needs Panarin too. I did their game the other night. They need more offensive juice, Frank. Like, they need, he is something they would need. And like you said, is it short term? And then like you said, okay, this means we're going to keep obviously Robertson and Panarin for the rest of this year, but this means Jason goes bye-bye. And I don't know if you would trade, like you said, to going back to the age, a 35-year-old. You're basically trading a 35-year-old Panarin for the 26-year-old Robertson. That's not a good long-term move.
I don't think so either. So Washington, they're on the rise. That makes sense.
Yep.
Minnesota, I don't think he's exactly what they need. I think Trocheck would be a better fit for them, but I can't officially rule them out. What
Nope.
about these other two teams, the wild cards? The Canes are always sniffing for stars. I don't know that he'd
Always.
go there, but Detroit has the pieces, and you could definitely see a top 6 forward fit for Panarin
Absolutely.
to add to that group.
No doubt. And they have more. Stevie Y has all this cap room, $38 million. He's got his contracts are really set up well. You know, Cop comes off the books after next year. For after there's 10 million more. So he's just got a good rhythm to the cap right now, though he can do this if he identifies him. And of course, you know, he played with the Russian Five. He's very familiar with the Russians. He's comfortable talking to Russians. So I would think this is a place that Panarin would love and play. So yeah. So it's really fun. He's an exciting player, so much charisma, and this is the one as in a trade deadline that might be kind of muted this year, Frank, because of because of the new rules of taking on money, trading a piece of your contract, all that stuff. It's nice to have one big juicy platter to talk about.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that he is driving the bus here.
Yes.
The Rangers, he's played his last game as a Ranger. That's why it hit these guys on the Rangers so hard last night, is because they realized that the end is here. And he's been one of the most productive players. Look at these numbers. He's well north of a point per game every year. He has been one of the best free agent signings by the Rangers in this salary cap era. Like, it's Zdeno Chara and Panarin's up there, believe it or not.
No doubt.
He single-handedly almost pulled that team out of their rebuild at that time when they added him. So, look, this is his agent has the cards to go negotiate and talk to teams about extensions, and that will loom large as this process unfolds. He has to give the green light.
Good talk. That was a good talk. Sometimes we go longer in some subjects, but there was life to it. There was juice. We went along. So we saw. So let's crank through a couple of these others, Frank. Ondrej Palat, goal and assist debut, played with Heineman and Horvat. Susie played 1638, by the way. That trade between the Isles and Rangers was only the 4th ever between the two teams in first in 16 years. That's rare. Good for Palat and Susie. Both didn't have to move far. They both have families, so that's kind of cool from New Jersey and the Rangers. Palat had a 10-team trade list, Frank, and he agreed to waive his trade protection to the Islanders. That made sense to him. And I love the quote from Patrick Waugh. It means he's in lockstep with his new GM. That's a new thing in the NHL. We're going to continue to draft and protect the future of the franchise and add 2 players that are going to help us. We do believe today we're a better team than yesterday.
I love a couple things about this. One, scored on the first shift that he played as an Islander, which after admitting pregame that he stunk in New Jersey, which you don't often hear players say, he said, I was bad. So this is just the second game that he scored in since December 1st. That had to feel good in and of itself to get on the score sheet. And so the Islanders are obviously thrilled. So that part is exciting. Also love what Patrick Waugh said as well about we play a style very similar to Tampa Bay. And he sent both Susie and Palat some video to get their heads into it well before the game, emailed it over, and allowed them to think about how he wants them to play. And Palat specifically hits the ground running. So I think sometimes as we engage in conversation about some of these players, and Ranger fans have been in my feed for days now, because I was saying, I think Susie's better than he's shown. I think Braden Schneider is way better than he's shown. I think Braden Schneider is absolutely lost in Mike Sullivan's defensive zone structure, and it's not for him. So don't be surprised if the Rangers move on from him, that he gets back to the level that he used to be at, because structure and system matters. That gets lost in the evaluation of players, and we probably need to consider that more.
We probably should. You're right. And I love what Matthew Dart said yesterday, because I might trade one of my 2 number 1 picks to get better. I don't believe him. I think he's going to keep him and try to be smart about this rebuild, but we going to see. Columbus, 7 wins in their last 8, 6-1 under Rick Bowness. Schedule was set up well before the break, Frank, to get points and gain on teams above them. At Chicago, at St. Louis, at Devils, home Chicago. And then they come back, and their first game's out of break, at Bruins, at Islanders, or home Islanders, 2 teams they're chasing. So Rick Bowness has them going, and 6-1 under him.
It's this quote from Zach Werenski, who you pointed out is the now leading defensive scorer in the NHL, that really caught me to the TNT broadcast when he said, look, the communication is better than it's ever been. Communication's off the charts. I don't think I've played for a coach that's as good of a communicator as he is. I've had more conversations with him in 2 weeks than I've had with any coach ever. Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
Old dog,
I was watching,
new trick.
Yeah.
Maybe just be a human being.
I was watching TNT last night. I was like, whoa. And a great quote. Aaron Porchline has an amazing Q&A with Bowness in The Athletic today. And one of his quotes was, I used to talk to Bruins players like that when he got his first job, and the Bruins didn't like it. Like Harry Sin and those guys didn't want him to talk to players. That's how prehistoric the relationship for the NHL back then. But he said, screw it. That's who I am. And so and that's why he's still in the game at 71. And I love this quote about his wife, Judy. We were high school sweethearts, been together since we were 16, married 48 years. All the times we got traded or sent down, I'd say to her, do you want me to look for something else? And she said, nope, this is what you love to do. We're doing it. Our whole life has been hockey, and she loves it as much as I do. I about cried over my scrambled eggs this morning at breakfast here at the West End reading that. To have that support from a woman like that, and she gets all the players' wives and girlfriends together wherever she goes. This Bowness thing is a package deal, Frank. It's a warm, fuzzy family package deal.
And as you pointed out, 6-1 is great, but it also matters who you beat. So they're knocking down teams that they're chasing. 6-1, next thing you blink, it becomes the record that the Sabres have had. And
that's right.
Maybe the Blue Jackets are a playoff team this year.
You got to keep going. You want to get to Philly and Armstrong before Bailey?
No, let's get to Bailey.
Let's get to Bailey then. All right, let's bring in Bailey Johnson from the Washington Post, the great beat reporter. Tonight on ESPN+, Patrick Kane tries to break Mike Modano's record, and they host the Washington Capitals. And hello, Bailey and the Capitals. Not good times to be around the Caps. Tom Wilson said it after the last game. This has been a kick in the teeth. Tonight's game, he calls it the most important game of the year. He's trying to lay the gauntlet down to get a victory tonight.
Yeah, it's been a really difficult stretch for them. Really, the last couple months, they haven't won back-to-back games since the beginning of December, which is not what you want as a team that's trying to keep pace in the East. And they're starting to kind of fall out of that race a little bit now as they've continued to struggle and had a really miserable 5 of 6 games on this trip so far. They've got 1 win on the game in Calgary and played really well in Edmonton the next night, but couldn't get that one done. And it was not a great scene in Seattle the other night. They were really, really, really frustrated. And the quote that stood out to me the most was, as part of that quote about being a kick in the teeth from Tom that you mentioned, he said, this should be a wake-up call for us. And Spencer Carberry's been banging the drum for several weeks now that their urgency level needs to rise and that the time is now for them to get it together. So I said to him, shouldn't that wake-up call have already come? And he sort of was like, I understand what Tom is saying, but yes, the wake-up call should have already come.
Can you put your finger, Bailey, on the biggest difference between Caps last year and this year?
I think the biggest thing, and it's going to sound simple, is that it's just not all going as right for them as it did last year. They were so healthy last year all the way through. Obviously, Ovi missed those few games with his broken leg, but he came back like he had never missed any time. And they had the chase for the record to keep them engaged, even as they built up a ton of points early in the year. Alexi Protas had a phenomenal year. Connor McMichael had a phenomenal year. Pierre-Luc Dubois was everything they could have asked for and more. Logan Thompson was really outstanding. Like, it just, all the pieces came together. Everything worked. Everybody had career years. And the question was how they would handle it when things regressed. And the answer it's turning out to be is not super well.
Yeah, you look back really 8 weeks, only Vancouver has given up more goals. So obviously, whether it's the goaltending, the defense, the structure, their goals against since December 13th. And in that stretch, they're 7-13-3. Again, only the Canucks worse. Have you noticed anything about goaltending or defense or goal prevention?
Yeah, the defense has definitely been the issue, and it's been the thing they've had a really hard time figuring out because it's the same group of guys that were one of the best defenses in the league last year and one of the best defenses in the league to start off the season this year. So it's not like they've had a big injury that's changing up their mix and things aren't quite the same. Like, it's been the same 6 for most of the year. They've rotated out that 6th spot, but generally speaking, it's been the same guys, and it's still, for whatever reason, just isn't quite working for them right now. It's been a little bit of that, a little bit of goaltending. You watch the goals they give up and it's a lot of rush stuff, or it's right in the middle of the slot, or it's a play from behind the net that they don't pick up, and then the guy's one-on-one with the goaltender. So it's kind of a combination of both the defensive structure and the goaltending. There are a handful of times where you say, oh, it probably would have been better if the goalie made that save, but most of them you watch and go, that really wasn't his fault. Like, there's not a lot he could have done about that. And that's whether Logan or Charlie's been in net. And they'll have Charlie Lindgren tonight in Detroit because Logan Thompson's out with an upper body injury, which is a blow to them in a game they really need to win. But Charlie's been playing better of late and as a guy they really rally behind. So maybe that could be a kind of galvanizing thing for them. He's such a beloved teammate and they tend to fight really hard in front of him. So maybe that will give them a little bit of extra jump in a game where they should have plenty. But yeah, losing Thompson for at least tonight is certainly a blow.
So we've kind of crossed off a few teams that are, interestingly enough, ahead of the Caps in the standings. Like we've said, all right, Toronto Maple Leafs, like curtains, hey, time to move on. But with the Caps, I think we've all kind of approached this season a little bit differently, in part because of what they still have coming in their pipeline, and in part because we think that they should be better than they've shown. So that brings us to the posture that Chris Patrick demonstrated or showed when he met with the media recently. And he said, look, we want to be involved in going out to get top 6 players to add to our team. Does that surprise you? And how aggressive do you think the Caps will be in light of this season where, as you pointed out, not a ton has gone right?
It didn't surprise me. They've been looking to make that kind of acquisition for a while now. I mean, they were in on Ehlers all the way down to the wire until he picked Carolina, and that's the kind of player they've been looking for, in some ways, as long as I've been here. This is my 3rd season covering the team now, and they've been talking about trying to get big players for a really long time. I don't think, and Chris hinted at this as well when he did that media session, that they will go sort of quote unquote all in and leverage their future with what they've got coming in their pipeline to make one of those deals, which is probably why it's been a little bit tougher to pull off. Like, you know, you see the reports that they're getting linked to Panarin, and certainly when Chris Patrick says he would like a top 6 winger and Artemi Panarin becomes available, those are some pretty obvious parallels to draw, and, you know, not a big leap to think that that's something that could happen. But, you know, and this is just hypothetically, if the Rangers ask, is Ilya Protas and Cole Hudson as part of that deal, like, that's not a thing that's going to happen. The Caps are not willing to part with their top prospects, which makes it more difficult for them to accomplish one of those deals to get a really high-end guy.
Alex Ovechkin, 11 points in his last 12 games, leads the team with 7 goals in that span. He's 4 goals away from 1,000 combined playoff and regular season, as you know, Bailey. You know, what's the talk around Ovechkin? Is it quiet? Obviously, he's unsigned. Is he going to come back? Is he going to retire? Is he going to go to Russia? It's been very, very quiet around him.
It has been very, very quiet around him. He's had a really sort of interesting year. It's maybe the quietest 20-plus goal season he's ever had with the team has done around him. And certainly when you watch him, like, he doesn't quite have the same jam that he did last year, but he's still capable of having a big night. He had a hat trick in Montreal in November that took even his teammates, who are never surprised by anything he does anymore, by surprise, because Alex Ovechkin, a hat trick at 40 years old, like, that's just kind of insane. It hasn't quite been those peaks since then. He's playing on the 3rd line now with Nick Dowd and Ethan Frank a lot of the time, because the matchups at 5-on-5 are just more difficult for him, especially playing on the road. The skating's not quite there. Yeah. The shot is still the shot and always has been. And when he gets it going on the power play, you know, he still looks the same as he always has. But it has been quiet. He's really, really kind of instant. He talks to the people closest to him, his family. I genuinely don't think even the Capitals know which way he's leaning. Like, every time we ask about it, they say they're not sure. And it's not one of those wink and a nod, we're not sure things. Like, it really seems like nobody really knows what he's thinking. I think that if he was coming back, there might be a little bit more talk than there is. Like, if that's the way he was leaning, there might start to be some chatter around what that extension would look like. And that's obviously not something that's happened. So it makes you think that this might be it, but he has not said it. And it's all just us kind of trying to put the dots together and be as prepared as we can for whatever decision he makes.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, kind of feels like the game is maybe plateauing a little bit, and naturally so, but I want to drill down on just the trade deadline again for a second. So you mentioned, like, and Chris Patrick was very clear about Cole Hudson, and obviously Protas is really, he's highly valued in the Caps organization. So if they were going to go after a Panarin or go after one of these top 6 additions, what makes sense to you in terms of pieces? And is there someone on the Caps roster now that they might be willing to part with?
I mean, I think you can look at guys like Hendrix Lapierre and Connor McMichael as young players that they might be willing to part with in terms of making a deal like that. Lapierre's had a difficult, at this point, 2 years. He just scored in Calgary the other night for his first goal in 91 games. So while he's someone that I think the Caps would be willing to part with, he's also not someone that maybe has a ton of value at this point around the league. Obviously, he's a former first-round pick and still a young player with a lot of talent, but it's not like he's lighting it up in a way that makes him be at the top of the list for other teams, which is kind of a difficult spot for the Caps to be in. They've got, McMichael as well hasn't had as strong of a year this year as he did last year. So while those are the pieces that I think they would be okay with including, the value of where that stacks up in terms of what that deal would get them is the tricky part.
I think we're in the same hotel chain, Bailey. We have the same fixtures. Do you have heat in your room? Because I don't.
I do have heat in my room, but I too am at the Western in Detroit. So yes.
Yeah, I'm still a little chilly here, but I'm trying to build some character with the playoffs coming up.
It's cold outside, so it's tough.
It is 12 degrees. Yeah, 12 degrees. And what about John Carlson? I'm curious about John. I'm a big fan of his. I think he could have easily replaced, and be on the Olympic team. Seth Jones, right-handed shot. Offensive guy, big guy, character guy, funny guy. You mentioned Lapierre when he scored that goal. I was watching, and he jumped in his arms like they won the Stanley Cup when he finally got that monkey off his back. Talk about John Carlson and your overall impressions of him.
He also, kind of like I said about Ovechkin, has had a quietly really outstanding year in terms of the production. He's leading the team in assists. I think he's got almost 40, which is, most defensemen, when they're putting up those kind of numbers, get a little more attention than John Carlson does, which is kind of how he's been through most of his career. He's always done a lot of the heavy lifting for the Caps without the biggest accolades around him league-wide. He's an interesting spot, too, as someone that's also unsigned. Chris Patrick said they've had discussions around an extension and have started to open that conversation. They slow played that a little bit. When we asked about it at the beginning of the season, Chris said he wanted to see how it went because Carlson's kind of at that age for a defenseman where things can start to drop off a cliff. So if it started to take a turn for him, they maybe would look to go a different direction. But he's had a strong year, and they're discussing, the possibility of what him coming back looks like. I would imagine it would be at a lower price than what he's currently making, but definitely someone that they're talking to. And, he would like to be a Capital for as long as he can be. So I think there's a lot of interest on both sides there.
For sure.
Bailey, on our way out, I just wanted to give you the floor. Obviously, it's been a difficult couple weeks at the Washington Post, this incredible beacon of journalism. And you come from a long line of outstanding women who have covered the Caps for the Post, going all the way back to Rachel Nichols, but Isabel Kershudian, Katie Carrera, yourself. It's been incredible to watch your coverage over the years. Can you just give our viewers a little sense of what it's been like trying to continue to produce great content in what's been a really difficult time?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been difficult, as I think everybody can see from the stuff we've tried to do on social media in terms of highlighting the work the sports section does and supporting our teammates in a tough couple of weeks. None of us really know where it's headed from here, but it has been the greatest honor to follow up the long line of women that have covered the Capitals for the Washington Post and try to do the best I can every day to live up to the very, very high standards that were set above me. So we all still try to do that and do the absolute best we can.
Yeah, it's a sad time as someone who grew up with newspapers. I know this whole 2016 thing going on as kids are trying to get to a more uncomplicated time. It'd be cool if they kind of rallied together and said, let's bring newspapers back. And read something tangibly out of my hands and to connect with my community and to read great writing, which is so good for your brain and all of that. So Bailey, certainly we're thinking about you. You do a great job. You're awesome. Keep it up, and maybe I'll see you at the rink tonight.
Absolutely, guys. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Great job. Bailey Johnson from the Washington Post. Any punctuation on that, Frank?
Yeah, I can't, doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously I'm a journalism nerd at heart, and I mean, the Post is like the it place. No one covers their local teams better, not just in the NHL, but like in any sport. And to think that might not exist moving forward, an entire sports section, like just at your network, there is no PTI without the Washington Post. Like it's
right.
The impact on sports from that paper has been immeasurable. And as mentioned, I mean, the women in particular that have come through that Caps beat are icons. So it's it's been tough to digest, and I certainly hope that they reverse course and decide to change gears and do something different.
Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania and Ohio, but my parents were Boston people, so I'd go back every 2 weeks. My dad took his vacation every year. We would go to South Boston, so I'd read the Globe. I couldn't believe this sports page, and so I knew I was going to kind of end up in New England after college. That was where my radar was pointing me. And so my senior year of college at Heidelberg in Tiffin, Ohio, I had the Boston Globe delivered to my room, to my campus mailbox.
No
They had a
way.
great they had a student rate. It was like $4 a month. Like, you know, 'cause, I mean, the paper was a quarter to get. So it was like $4. They would deliver it right. And of course, they would stack up over a few days. It wouldn't fit in the old mail slot at college. But I would read, you know, all Peter Gammons and Bob Ryan and Kevin Paul DuPont and all these, Will McDonough in the NFL. And then, so when I go to ESPN to get, you know, I audition to my 10-minute Sports Center, and I start to meet 3 executives. And one of them is Vince Doria, who now works at ESPN. He was the sports editor of the Boston Globe during the glory years of the 80s and 90s. I rattle off his entire roster of reporters, why I liked them, why I thought this guy was great, why I thought this young guy, Michael Hawley, was really a good writer. This Steve Fainaru guy was unbelievable with the Red Sox, how he wrote. And he was just blown away that I had this scouting report on his roster. And I swear that's one of the reasons why I got hired, just because I just happened to get this interview with Vince Doria. And because I read this newspaper every day, gave me some of that polymath knowledge we talk about, helped me get to ESPN where we still are. So reading's important, kids. It's the number one life hack.
I started at the Philadelphia Daily News, and pound for pound, one of the best sports sections in the country. Every single person covering their beat, except for me, was already in the Hall of Fame for their respective sport. I mean, think about that. Like, bananas to share the same pages as them.
All right, you want to circle back to Philly and St. Louis before we continue on?
Yeah, let's touch on them quickly, because I think noteworthy the slide that the Flyers have been on. I mean, you mentioned not just losing, but also like to who you're losing. The Islanders shut out earlier this week, then go to Columbus and drop another one, and pile in another Rasmus Ristolainen injury. He just played a minute in Wednesday's loss to Columbus. Ooh. Now you're starting to think, are the Flyers entering cell territory, which, rewind back to the beginning of the month, it's kind of hard to believe they finished that Western Canadian road trip with wins in Edmonton, then came home and spanked the Anaheim Ducks on Cutter Gauthier night. And you're thinking the Flyers might be for real here. They've won like twice since then.
2-7-1 their last 10.
And now they're right back into NHL's no man's land, which is a really difficult place to be. You don't want to be picking 14th. You got to try and find a way into the top 5. And the best way to do that is going to be to sell off pieces. I just don't know how big of a stomach that they have to do that.
They're 8 points out of the wild card, 6 back of the division. That's the same as Columbus, who we just talked about. But again, right now it's teams going in different directions. But we've seen a seesaw performance by a lot of teams this year. They're in Boston tonight. They have 30 games left. And then this was really a great soundbite from Doug Armstrong, the Blues GM. Lowest scoring team, second lowest point total in the league to Vancouver, Frank, with 29 games left. So they could be in the top 3 pick draft land, which would be a very good player to a team that actually has a decent stable of youngish guys. Might not be the worst thing, but I thought this soundbite from Armstrong was really, it was pretty honest, and it was something.
Yeah, obviously we're embarrassed for where we're at in the standings. It's been a really poor year. I thought we didn't play well our second game of the year, but found a way to win in Calgary. Then we played an excellent game in Vancouver, and I thought that would be the start of something that we could build off of, and it hasn't gone that way. It's been, as I said, it's extremely embarrassing. The disappointing part is we don't have a foundation that we fall back on any given night. We don't have an identity that we play to. Every night it seems to be something different. And until we find something that has a solid foundation, that this is who we are, this is what we go back to, we're going to continue to have these games where it's something different every night. And that's something that I work with the coach on every day and we talk about every day. Unfortunately, we just haven't found it.
Man, embarrassing is a strong word to use, boy.
It is, but then cut through some of the other things that he's saying, which is we don't have a foundation. For the rest of the league that's broadcasting we're open for business, which everyone knows, but that everyone, for the most part, except for their young players, Jake Neighbors, Jimmy Snuggerud, probably would throw Holloway and Broberg into that conversation, and Joel Hofer and net. Everyone else, come and get him. That includes Robert Thomas. That includes Jordan Kyrou. Like, these are guys that have been there a long time, that are signed to big tickets. So the early word is that the Blues prices, though, have been very high, understandably for Kyrou and Thomas. But in order to get business done and to truly make the changes that Doug Armstrong is talking about, probably going to need to see some of those prices soften a bit in order to make that happen and really turn over this roster.
For sure. And just keep in mind, obviously, Alex Steen is going to be the new GM starting next year. One of his best buddies is Steve Ott, just sent down to the minors to get some head coaching experience. He's gotten some head coaching interviews before, but sometimes people want to see how you do a room. But ironically, talking to Jim Montgomery the other day, he was like, he can cut tape, he can run a room, he can lead a meeting, he's all the skills to be head coach. He will be a head coach. And just keep in mind that, this continues. Obviously, Montgomery, they just got him last year. I don't think they'd make a change this summer, but a new GM is coming into play, and he has a very close relationship with a guy who's in the organization currently coaching young players, and so far doing a pretty good job. Early signs of a team that not very good, because they called so many up to St. Louis. Although Stenberg is down there again, and his brother might get drafted. They might get a chance to draft his brother, 1, 2, or 3.
That would be interesting.
How about those apples? Let's ask the insider, Frank Saravalli, who's under the radar trade target we should be talking about. We mentioned that I think it's going to be a lot of these guys, Frank, because, again, it's harder to get the big ticket guys with LTIR rules and trying to shave off some salary to other teams for draft picks. What do you have on your mind?
Yeah, so we've spent a lot of time talking about Panarin or Kadri or Blake Coleman, or pick a big name that's been out there so far. What about someone who's been playing middle 6 minutes, that's a vet, who's a reliable presence, that I think if you plugged him in with better talent around him, which he hasn't had in Seattle, how about Jaden Schwartz? Highly motivated, I believe, to get to a contender, pending unrestricted free agent, isn't going to have that major price point that some of these other players have, that if you add to your top 9 somewhere, there's a guy who's won a Stanley Cup already in St. Louis, a guy who can be a solid playoff contributor and a really, really well-liked guy on every team that he's been on. I think Jaden Schwartz is a guy that people aren't talking enough about.
26 goals last year. So, he certainly has some juice to his game from Saskatchewan. Everyone likes people from Saskatchewan. And so, that I can see. I think there's a number of guys. Those are the guys we got to look at around the league. Justin Falk, I think the Blues are definitely going to trade him. I think that there'll be plenty of teams there, and he would I think he'd get a decent, good return if they can figure out who they are and what identity they want and how they're going to think about this roster going forward. I could actually, with Armstrong being so busy, you wonder if he's just going to wait to the Olympic break, see how the Olympics go, and then really just go all in after the Olympics to take the best offers, like you said. That maybe that's one reason why the picks were high. Says, let's just charge high now, and then after the Olympic break, we'll just go full board. We'll get deals done. We can get them done quickly.
Yeah, and keep an eye on the Kraken. They're going to be moving out a bunch of guys. So
open for business.
Yeah, just the pending UFAs. They're not going to be hanging on to them most likely. So that includes everyone from Alexiak to Everly. They're going to have interesting guys to move out to. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those are the 4 guys you mentioned, along with Schwartz. Those are their UFAs going to next year. Hashtag Hockey Time. We scour the social media epidermis to scrub out some hockey show content. That's what we do. And put on your Hellebuycket, Frank.
This is such a wild social media thing. It didn't gain a ton of attention, but from crack reporter Danielle Bain in Winnipeg, who does a great job for TSN, the city of Winnipeg itself took submissions on what to name their snowplows. I guess everyone needs a name. It can't just be a number. And 3 Winnipeg Jets, unsurprisingly, popped up. You've got the Hellebuycket, Slosh Morrissey, and Mark Chevely. I mean, I just think in such a hockey mad town and community, to be able to name some all important winter equipment after some of your hockey icons. I mean, this is if you're going to get creative, well done.
Kind of like Greg. It's kind of funny, Greg.
Good job.
But in terms of who's the best Greg of all time in Winnipeg Jet history, that's what we need to know. I like Schloss Morrissey. That's got my vote.
Pretty good.
Snow removal is a way of life in Winnipeg, so you might as well have fun with it. You might as well paint up the plows, put on, just make it fun as you're stuck there watching these plow go down the street. Make it entertaining. Make it a part of the culture. All right, the last word on this edition of Frankly Hockey.
We got to speculate.
What? Oh, we got to speculate first. My goodness. Rundown.
Yeah.
It's right here. Speculate to accumulate. You're up, you're in the plus, and you got 15 options tonight. This should be easy pickings for a man of your heat map.
Yeah, I don't know about easy, but the New York Islanders did it last night against a very sad New York Rangers team. Now they're playing again tonight. Rematch, just on the other side of New York. So not grueling travel for the Islanders. Both teams are in the same position, having just played each other 24 hours earlier. So no rested, tired situation. And the Islanders, juicy, plus 185 to win by 2 or more again. Now, some might say, hard to beat the same team twice in 24 hours. I would say, have you watched the New York Rangers of late? And obviously no Panarin. They don't seem ultra motivated. And we've got that Matthew Schaefer stat that we were talking about. The Islanders, they want this. They definitely want it more than the Rangers. So Islanders plus 185 to beat the Rangers tonight at MSG.
I think that's just smart speculation. Not a guarantee, as we know. Nothing in life is, but it's a prudent, juicy speculation. Now to the last word. Anchor breath. Hat-tricked. Last night, Travis Konechny, 29th hat trick of the month. That ties the record ever. Of course, more teams, more games. We should break these records eventually. We understand the math, people. But December 85th, there were 29 hat tricks. So we're now tied for the most ever in 1 month, Frank.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a couple days to break it. And we would have broken it had, Jared McCann's hat trick the other night in Seattle counted, which would have been also the first Kraken hat trick on home ice. So This was overturned by a penalty call. And what the Kraken have done for all the fans that threw their hats on the ice that then needed to be collected and obviously disposed of, if you threw your hat on the ice, you present your ticket stub, and they teamed up with American Express, complete the form below, and if you were hat tricked, meaning you sent your hat out on the ice without a hat trick being officially scored, they will send you a new one in the mail. So love this from the Kraken. They teamed up with American Express to pull it off. Nice little sponsored element. But to do right by your fans after they threw their hat on the ice to celebrate your player, I just think more teams should think like this moving forward. Fan first, always. And the Kraken are all over it.
I agree. We talk about the salary cap going up, and there's a million ads on the ice and on the boards, and the players are getting rich, and the team's franchise values are going through the roof. As usual, the fan seems to never get the break. Tickets don't go down. Parking doesn't go down. So to do stuff like this, I think you're right, Frank. It's just good public relations. Like, give the fans, throw them a bone once in a while.
And that's exactly what Kraken fans are getting. I mean, just make it right. It's not a crazy, overt, super expensive gesture, and you got a sponsor to take care of the bill.
I love it. So, we have a very good chance to break the hat trick record. 15 games tonight, only 1 tomorrow because of all the games. Blackhawks, Blue Jackets, but then 14 more Saturday. So we got 30 games, 60 teams to get 1 hat trick. I like it. I like our chances.
Happens tonight.
And as much as we pull the goalie as much, that only helps hat tricks as well. And 1 goal leads, 2 goal leads earlier, more chance for empty nets. All right. Great show again, as always. I'm in Detroit. I'll be here again one more day tomorrow morning. Hope it's warmer. That's Frank Saravalli. I'm John Butchergoss. This is Frankly Hockey. We're here 5 days a week, 9 o'clock Pacific, noon Eastern, giving you 60 minutes of hockey fun. Peace.